This is Natalie Pace. I'm the co-creator and executive director of the Earth Gratitude Project at earthgratitude.org. And today I'm so excited to be speaking with Jasen Brown. He is the director of engineering at two different properties at Ritz-Carlton in Vail and Bachelor Gulch, Colorado. He is also the chair of the Rocky Mountain Engineering Business Council. The reason we're talking to him is because a lot of times the upgrades and changes that happen both in buildings, especially aging infrastructure, as well as even cities, comes from engineering. And what I was super impressed with, a couple of things. First of all, are you aware that the Ritz-Carlton brand is committed to sustainability? And they actually really lead in this area in many different parts of sustainability, which we'll be talking about with Jasen Brown. I was super impressed because when I visited Denver, Ritz-Carlton over a decade ago, they were really leading the charge on sustainability, not just in the engineering angle, but how Jasen was training even the housekeeping staff because Colorado is one of those areas that gets 300 days of sunshine. So if they can manage even just the way the sun comes in to warm a room or to cool a room by not letting the sun in, that's a big deal. And that is just staff training. That does not require an extra widget. So we'll be talking to Jasen Brown about a lot of things that can help all of us in our home, because if he can save tens of millions or more for Ritz-Carlton, imagine what he can do for you in your home, all these little tips and hacks. But also, you can start thinking about these things for if you do work for a business or if you're trying to see infrastructure changes in your community or your city. So thank you, Jasen, so much for joining me today because as I already mentioned in your intro, I was super impressed with the green eco policy at Ritz-Carlton. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and also the role that engineers have to play?
Of course. So it all starts from the top down leadership. Our company has set some very aggressive goals that when these goals rolled out seemed like 2030 was forever away. And now 2030 is just around the corner. And uh, we still have our 23 benchmark goals or 2030 benchmark goals that we need to meet and obtain. And there's hasn't really been a sliding scale on it, but as you get closer, that scale either goes up or goes down so we can contribute to our component. And being remote in the mountains like we are, we've had to find different avenues. And we are about 2 to 2.5 hours from the Denver metro area. So a lot of our activities that we have ended up executing in the mountains have been a hard look at what works in the city, what would work in our area, and finding ways to not only partner with my senior leadership team, but also our local purveyors in the community so we can have a positive outlook on what we see for these initiatives.
And it's interesting because I know that one of the things you wanted to talk about was aging buildings and infrastructure. We think of the Ritz-Carlton as a premium brand. It's certainly every property I've been to is just pristine and gorgeous. But, when you're looking at it from an engineering standpoint, I'm guessing that there are some things that we can always upgrade. So what have you done? And I know you went from Denver up to, the area you're in now. So
Yes, ma'am.
what have you been doing and what have you been really focused on over the last few years?
Ooh, that's a big range. I think when you look at the Ritz-Carlton Bachelor Gulch specifically, we will be celebrating our 24th anniversary in November.
Hmm.
And uh, there's positive and negatives to leadership turnover or leaders being on site for a long time. Like myself, I've been on property for almost 10 years.
Wow.
And we have identified through operation efficiencies that come along the way being uh, situated on property for so long. There's technologies that have come about and working with not just my company to develop my skill set and my team's skill set, but having trusted partners in our engineering disciplines,
Yeah.
mechanical engineers that can help. Really, if I come up with something that I think is the right avenue to be going down, that I'm using those trusted partners to say, hey, this is what I've identified. Can we go down this rabbit hole and see if there's a energy efficiency for the property? I think the biggest one that comes to mind is the difference in mechanical cooling and free cooling. We spend a lot of the year in the mountains of Colorado where temperatures are below, call it 55 or 60 degrees in a normal year.
Right.
And we used to use a lot of mechanical cooling in the winter, and it was puzzling to me my first couple of years why I was using mechanical cooling when it was 20 below. And what we learned is that the engineering for the original construction of the building, they missed the design a little bit on our free cooling system. So we were able to re-engineer our free cooling system just by adding capacity and equipment that we already had.
Interesting.
And in a normal year, I don't utilize free cooling in the winter. And I say in a normal year, we've had more days in the 70s in the last 3 weeks than I've seen in 46 years of life in the month of March. And I say that because not only do I live in the Vail Valley, I also grew up in Breckenridge, Colorado.
Right. Well, this actually leads into the other piece of the equation that I really wanted to focus on as well is that if you're actually, reconfiguring your heating and your cooling, my guess is that that amounts to cost savings as well, in addition to being more energy efficient. Can you speak to that a little bit?
That is absolutely correct. When we look at the free cooling versus mechanical cooling, I have to run our cooling towers regardless of time of year to provide cooling. And what that does is, layman's term, it extracts heat from the system, from the hydronic system, and out into the environment. Well, if I can utilize free cooling, I'm only utilizing the cooling towers and maybe reduce capacity on associated pumps to move water throughout the building.
Yeah.
The second we go into mechanical cooling, I basically have to start a 270-ton chiller and all of the additional utility startups that are associated with running a such a large piece of equipment. And when your utility rate is somewhere between 9 and 15 cents a kilowatt hour, that really has a large impact when a chiller starts up. Additional motors and pumps have to start up,
Yep.
and the more I can stay off of the major utility grid is a huge factor. And even to the point, something that we've always had, but there's a new focus to it in our area is demand charges are going to be a surge in at a premium this summer,
Yeah.
which is not new to the mountains, but the kind of surplus charge they're going to have
Yeah.
is going to be a different impact. That the more equipment that I have running operationally effective and ensuring that we are uh, monitoring those times allows for utility savings at the end of the month and end of the year.
So as you can see, Jason more than pays for himself, but he also pays for some of the other eco initiatives that he wants to install. Just for those people that are non-engineers, this is something, and it seems so obvious, and I didn't put it together, and my brother is an engineer. The bigger the appliance, the more kilowatt hours, the more energy it requires. So even if it's a smaller amount of time, if you're firing up a big appliance, that's a lot of energy. I want to also say what really impressed me when I toured Denver Ritz-Carlton and stayed there as well was that you actually were training the cleaning staff how to monitor the heat and cool that comes in from the sun, because the good news is that you also get the sunlight for 300 days in Colorado. So that can probably provide some heat in the winter, I'm assuming. And in the summer, of course, you want to take that down a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's simple training and also things that everybody can use in their own home to reduce their electric bill too.
I think when you hit my favorite passion part is what we do at work is important, but these skills, benefits, and behaviors go home and should be saving you money at home if you implement them in your personal life. Working with our housekeeping team, um, all the way back to when I was at the Ritz-Carlton Denver and throughout my career, you are correct. There's a couple of behaviors that we do, whether it's pulling the drapes and shears. In the summer, we try to bring them closed to about 3/4. we don't want our guests to walk into a dark room,
Yeah.
but you also don't want to walk into a heat loaded room.
Right.
So it very much is a fine line. So we work exclusively with our housekeeping team to ensure that seasonally, a lot more in the summer, we'll have the blackouts, which is the heavier drapery that we're all familiar with,
Yeah.
closed three quarters. But in the summer, we may only have the sheers closed and the draperies open all the way. And then that's kind of the basic behavior. But the one that when we partner with thermostat adjustments, provides the greatest opportunity. Depending on age of facility, we have uh, property management systems that will tie to the guest room thermostat.
Hmm.
And at one of my properties, the Ritz-Carlton Vail, I have that, which when we check a guest in at the front desk,
Yes.
gives us the opportunity to set a thermostat within a parameter. But if you have an older building with older thermostats, you rely heavily on your housekeeping team to set those accordingly to your seasonality. So
Right.
when a guest comes in, the room isn't heat loaded from the sun or extremely cold because it's winter, and you've utilized your housekeeping staff to ensure, as the one that is in the room once or twice a day, that it is set right where a guest would want it. And they're the first line of defense to be able to report defects back to the engineering team. So we can try and get in there before a guest ever makes a comment or complaint with regards to an experience.
So let me guess, then that means that when a guest is not in the room, you're not trying to superheat it or super cool it, right?
That is correct. And most importantly, when a guest is in the room, we want it to be at their comfort level.
Right.
But if a guest stays with us and they want the room 70 degrees, we have actions that we can do by adjusting the drapery to help maintain the set point in that room. So mechanically, we can help provide what they want. But then you can just create a much stabler environment by utilizing your housekeeping staff and making minor adjustments in the room.
And by the way, again, a lot of us can be doing this at home and not just comfort and all of that. Like when you talk about utility bills that are increasing with whatever way that they're surcharging us, this can be worth a lot of money, guys. Let's also talk about I think this is important, and I'm not sure what the engineering role around this is, and I'd love to learn from you. But let's talk about Ritz-Carlton's policy towards plastic and what they're doing there, and maybe any role that you've had in that policy shifting or where you would like to see it go.
I would say not only with Ritz Carlton, but Marriott as our parent company. And this, I mean, I date back to 2000, we're going to call it 7 or 8, when uh, the move started where, say, potato cups came in uh, instead of your traditional plastic cup, something that is biodegradable, has
Yeah,
been a forefront of the company for, at this point, as long as I can remember.
right,
Uh, Even back, there was entertaining times where being outside in the sun, the potatoes would act or the cups would actually melt because of the heat from the environment that we were in. And
right.
again, I think technology is advanced and they're much more stable than they were. But Marriott has really helped drive uh, getting any single use product off property.
Wow.
But that's great when you look at our company saying, I don't want single use product. It comes down to your purchasing leader, it comes down to your exec chef, it comes to your housekeeping team to support these initiatives. Because I can sit in a meeting with my senior leadership team on property and say, hey, Marriott's asked us to do this. But if we don't have the support from the 7 or 8 other ladies and gentlemen on my senior leadership team and from my general manager down, we're never going to be successful.
Right.
And that's where Marriott has really helped us. Not only have we, I shouldn't say 100% eliminated, but we are very close to, we're probably north of 95% eliminated single use plastics on property. And having a company that we don't have to go individually try and find a product. Uh, I think if we all refer back to when paper straws became a thing,
Yeah,
there was a long time where you might get, you hoped half of a drink out of a paper straw.
right.
And now the, the technology has come along again, and a paper straw will actually last longer. And beyond that, I know different outlets throughout our company actually have metal straws that are cleaned and served with specialty drinks, which just again it shows the level of attention to each individual leader within our different hotels throughout our company.
Now, let's also talk because, whenever I go into a hotel, a lot of times they'll offer you a bottle of water that's single-use plastic as well. So, how does that translate into the policy at Ritz-Carlton, and what are they offering instead?
So at my properties and a lot of our properties throughout the company, we've started to go to whether it's a bottle filler where housekeeping will refill glass bottles and then deliver them to the room,
Wow.
or in public spaces, we have bottle fillers, whether it's your kind of typical water fountain that has a bottle filler,
Yes.
or specifically, we have partnered with a company that offers the opportunity for us to have still and sparkling water out of a fountain, and
Wow.
guests can take care of that on their own. We also take opportunities where we will put water stations throughout the property, depending on time of year. It's
Yeah.
a lot more in the summer with our guests being out hiking in our beautiful environment. We'll
Yeah.
put water stations out, whether it's at the front desk or different areas, to be able to provide that not single use source.
Yeah.
And again, not everybody travels with a water bottle, but that's probably the one area is single use water bottles are still there,
Yeah.
just because not everybody travels with a water bottle.
Right. Got it.
But we also try to create, and we've done a good job throughout kind of the last 5 to 8 years of providing a single use, like the collapsible soft ones, and they come and go. Sometimes it's a big it almost becomes trendy. Like everybody wants the collapsible water bottles. Sometimes people like their big coffee or their big metal uh, water bottles.
Yeah.
I always attribute those as specifically in my house. It's kind of like a Yeti coffee cup. How many different flavors of the same thing can you have? And
Yeah.
next thing you have all the models of every Yeti coffee cup.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of our ladies and gentlemen, and specifically in my household, it's the same thing with water bottles of different types.
I love it. And I love the fact that this happened so fast, and I'm just so impressed with whomever started that campaign is the companion water bottle. That was super fun, and super fast. And that's what kind of gives me hope for all these eco changes is that, a good hashtag and a good idea can catch on super fast.
Mhm.
Let's talk about composting because I was looking around and I was so impressed with what you guys are doing there. So I'm sure this is something that you know about too.
This is probably my favorite win in this space of my job in the last 10 to 15 years. And composting has been a big push for everybody, not just Marriott, not just individual hotels, individual people, but across the board. It's a huge opportunity, but it's also has the opportunity to create a big mess and pest and rodent infestation. And there's been technologies that have come across with food digesters, and my exec chef and I have put some windshield time in traveling throughout the state of Colorado to look at different food digesters and pick the brains of people that have used different types of food digesters.
Right.
And what we kind of came down to is we have so much volume, just like these other hotels,
Right.
that with our limited footprint, we didn't have a place for food digestion.
Right.
And we didn't have a footprint in our outlets. We didn't have a footprint on our loading dock. And we struggled. And then we were real close when we found a option that we liked to saying we wanted to go with it.
Oh yeah.
And then our local one of our local utilities came up, and we were talking to them, and the enzyme that goes into a lot of those food digesters
Yeah.
isn't compatible with the water treatment plants when it goes down
Oh,
valley or down the hill. And it was like I've always been hesitant about that type of stuff because enzymes they're very beneficial, but they're very touch and go when you put your different utilities or specifically like grease traps, then only certain places in my experience have been able to field and receive because of the enzyme in there.
Right.
We got very nervous, and I was talking to the our waste hauler, which our waste hauler had purchased basically our market of waste, and Apex Waste Solutions came to me and said, "We want to try something with you and a couple businesses in the valley and see what happens." And effectively, we have taken a 9-yard steel trash can. We found a spot on the loading dock. My staff in the kitchens, I shouldn't say my staff, but our staff in the kitchens, through the leadership of our exec chef,
Yeah.
we've got 3-yard kind of the residential trash cans that we all have at home.
Yeah.
We fill those with anything that comes out of the kitchen that is food related.
Right.
And then within that, you can put in the potato cups, the paper straws, our napkins. We're working with our purchasing leader, who is, I don't know, our purchasing leader is probably 5 months into his role now. And
Yeah.
he's working to convert anything that he purchases paper products for
Right.
our building becomes compostable.
Got it. So that means that no plastic in it, right?
No plastic, and there are different grades that our facility will accept.
Yeah.
But a lot of your food digesters can't take meat bones, fish bones, can't take eggshells. In our application, when I say anything food related that comes out of the hotel
Yeah.
goes into the um, composting bin that we have on property. And then Apex Waste Solutions comes 3 times a week. They empty our containers. Now that we're into warmer season, we're working on the cleanliness of it because it was new that we started in
Yeah.
October.
Yeah.
But on average, just with the composting that we've done, we're between 15 and 20% of our overall waste has been reduced from the compactor and now goes out strictly in compost.
Amazing.
That was exciting. And then we realized when we were looking at our haul weights for our compactor
Yeah.
that our compactor was going out what used to go out twice a week and was almost at capacity. We reduced it for almost the entire winter with exception of 4 total weeks to
Yeah.
one haul a week,
Oh my goodness.
which getting trucks off the road, ensuring that we're taking our compactor out as a full weight instead of anything else
Yes.
is it's been very rewarding. And then watching our sous chefs and our culinary professionals utilizing it and having Apex have their representative come and sit in our employee dining room
Yeah.
and explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and having Apex's top leadership come to property, and they're kind of as shocked that it works as anybody is.
Yeah.
And we have a facility that is, I bet the facility is about 40 minutes from here. And I don't know what the frequency of them going to that facility is. But that's my next, this spring, I want to take a field trip down there and watch how the sorting process works. But when you realize you can take and you ultimately are giving time back to your waste provider
Yeah.
because they're not having to come pull light loads or frequent loads is just it's rewarding, and it's what I'm most excited about. And then having the partnership with my culinarians has absolutely been amazing.
Yeah, and I love this. And just for a lot of us that again, what I love about this too is that we're able to, also talk about how you can do it at home. So a lot of cities, guys, they'll tell you compost in the green yard waste bin, right? And if you my friend, I get to travel for the Earth Gratitude Project, seeking out sustainability around the world. So Rome does this as well, right? And the interesting thing is that if you put the compost in a compostable bag, that doesn't work. But if you gather the compost and then put it in a bag before you stick it in the grain yard, that will work. So there are ways that you can kind of reduce the muss and fuss. I'll tell you what I do, which obviously you wouldn't want to do because you have too much of it. But I store my compostable items in the freezer. And then when I go to take it to the green yard waste bin, it comes out like a giant ice cube. So that's my little life hack there.
I'll
Anyway,
tell you what's been the most exciting, and I mean, I go back to early in my career when I lived in Florida and you had all in one recycling.
right.
I live in a community where we have all in one recycling, we have composting, and it really makes it easy when you have a waste purveyor that is partnering with the community.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And also, I mean, even for those of us that are sorting a little bit, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of recycling, but when we're sorting a little bit, especially our compost waste from our food waste, I think the added benefit of that is that your garbage doesn't smell. And just like you at Ritz-Carlton, the amount of garbage you have is much less as well. Right. So,
Mhm.
I like all month, I won't fill up a garbage can, but I'm definitely filling up that compost container. Is there anything else that you want to highlight about the role that especially engineers can play? And we haven't talked a lot about this, but I'll bet that you are also counting CO2 for because it's such a big piece of the equation on transportation. Like, are you guys trying to figure out how to get people around the properties in a more clean, friendly way, or even up from Denver to your properties? How are you looking at that, or is that something you're still checking on?
You know, there's multiple thoughts, multiple avenues on that. Again, our parent company, Marriott, we have all of the applications where we can track utilities, square footage, kind of everything we do as a day-to-day operation. Uh, as we advance with technology, we do have a lot of our groups that will either fly local and then come up, or fly into Denver, come up as groups instead of individual arrivals.
Mm,
Uh, in just being remote, it being remote provides its own challenges and opportunities. And watching groups that are very cognizant about this,
yeah,
uh, as it gets to our sales team, and we work with our sales team, we have providers that we work with that align with our company's values and with the hotel's values. Uh, the interesting thing, and I think we all know we're seeing more electric vehicles, but on the roads and
yeah,
hybrids on the roads. Being in the mountains, you're seeing more and more of it, but there's still, and I'm in this boat where there's the fear that I'm going to get stuck on I-70 and I'm going to run out of battery on I-70.
yeah.
And so there's a mind shift change that very much still needs to be worked through. And as technology advances, that changes dramatically with everybody.
Are you worried about that today with all the technological advances and the extended, I know that having cold weather does reduce the amount of time you've got on your battery. Are you still that concerned about it, or you think it's not, it's less?
Me
Yeah,
personally, yes. I have a lot of friends and colleagues that
yeah.
they give me a hard time and tell me that I should be a 70-year-old man the way I
Oh,
think sometimes.
right.
Um, but very much it's something that resonates with me, knowing that I could be driving back from Denver and get stuck on one of our high mountain passes for several hours at a time, and know that that's an opportunity. I
Yeah.
guess at the end, and you look at the other side of it, and a friend of mine said this the other day. It's no different than if you forget to put fuel in your vehicle. But
Oh, yeah, because I'm like wondering like how it doesn't reduce that much in the cold, right? And that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. They're like, "Oh, it's going to take me forever to charge it." I'm like, you don't fill up your car tank and with gasoline every day, and you don't have to charge your electric vehicle every day. I know people that charge their electric vehicle twice a month, you know. You
Mhm.
it's not, I mean, obviously cold weather does it does limit it a little bit. All right. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Opportunities. I think especially the reason I was excited about talking to you is that, we don't have, I just don't know how serious businesses are taking it, especially if you have an older building, especially, like hotels need to conserve not just energy, money, and making that equation in there that conserving energy is conserving money.
The
So,
actions that Marriott helps support and actions that we drive home, and uh, even to when we were all school age children, having an 11-year-old daughter, and even my 4-year-old son talking about recycling and waste activities. It was all talked about when we were in school,
yeah,
but our parents weren't of that generation, or at least most parents weren't of that generation to think proactively like that.
yeah,
And now to have our generation that not only lives it, supports it, and have our kids, and having a 4-year-old boy say, Daddy, this goes in the recycling, right? And actually go to the right component at our house
yeah,
is rewarding and gives me the confidence that what we have done as what we have done as a growing evolution, it can be undone with the right avenues and the right actions taken. I think personally, when we look like back to COVID and we watched how greenhouse gases changed so much
oh my,
because people weren't commuting all the time,
yes,
shows that that impact can be done very quickly
yes,
if we change our behaviors at work, at home, and every one of our interactions. We can help get back to those winters where there's so much snow I don't want any more snow
yeah.
versus playing golf in March on a 70-degree day in the mountains of Colorado.
Yeah, that's crazy. Jason, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. This
Of
is
course.
real, and what I love too is that it seems like, and you were talking about this at the beginning about top down. It seems like having someone at the top saying we're going to be eco-friendly or we're going to have these initiatives, and having that where you're at your table talking to your executive chef and all these other people, the head of housekeeping, everybody is on board with it, sharing ideas and coming up with. Again, even at home, a lot of the things that we can do at home, a lot of the things that can be done at business, this doesn't there are some things like solar panels require an investment. Other things require education and awareness, right?
Behaviors are free.
I love that.
Behaviors are free. And all the green teams that I've led, all of the really most of the initiatives that I've rolled out,
Yeah,
I, I do it. Sounds awful to say I do it because it's part of my job.
right.
But if everybody learns those lessons, they made money at home. And our your paycheck isn't going to change. But to be able to go home and make some additional money through behaviors, that's where the real victory is.
Well, and it can be worth, a lot of people don't realize just how much it can be worth, right?
Mhm.
Like reducing, when I was writing The Power of 8 Billion and also the energy chapter of the ABCs of Money, I asked my brother to write it because he was in charge of the macro electric grid for NASA. And,
Mhm.
he couldn't technically put his name on it because of all the regulatory crap you'd have to go through, but he wrote it. And he and another handyman here in Santa Monica, their electric bill per month was $35. That's a lot lower than the average person. And my brother in Florida did not have solar panels. And in Santa Monica, a lot of people here, I mean, the weather's more moderate, but you'd still pay a lot more than that. So,
We bought our house in January of 2017.
yeah,
And the first move I did was put solar on our house.
yeah,
Now, November, December, January, February, doesn't matter what's going on. I get snow on the solar panels, but I'm only paying, call it $80 a month. The rest of the year, I pay $16 a month.
that's for the
And that's
grid
because,
connection.
and that's because you have to stay connected to the grid.
Yeah.
I mean, there are technologies out there. Yes, they're expensive, but the return on investment is there. When you're looking personally,
Yeah.
it's something that increases the value of your home.
Well, also, I want to ask you this because, the obviously now it's going to be a longer period of time. But if you purchased them in 2017, my guess is you paid them off already, and now you have
Yes.
that free money, right?
Yes.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize. I mean, when we had the tax incentives, they would say a sunny state, you could pay it off 4 to 7 years.
Mhm.
And then now it might be more because you don't have that extra 30 percent tax credit, but it still pays off. And that's the best bond you can get because the savings could be 20%, like a equivalent of a 20% yield.
And I don't know about all utilities, but in our area, they're working on rebates for battery, so you can have storage.
Oh,
And
wow.
then when you have storage, when I get to that middle of the year,
Yeah.
now I don't have to worry about in the winter months not having utility. Power goes out, I have a little bit of utility before I have to jump onto the grid, but
Right.
just continued avenues that we have that are afforded, not really afforded to us, but opportunity to capture and run with.
Okay, and I'm gonna because I think this is an important thing before we let everybody go. And you can speak to this a lot more than I can, but what I've always tell people is before you get your solar quote, get your megawattage usage down as low as you can through the behavioral changes, right? And also maybe installation changes. Are there any resources or tips that you want to offer there? But I think that's super important because that could reduce the amount of megawatt you need by at least a third or perhaps more.
When we did our solar install, our the company that did it worked very closely with our local utility.
Yeah,
And because we were new in the house, they basically took, and I don't recall because it's been a few years now, but it
right.
was either a 3 or 5 year average of what the utility load was on that house
Yeah,
and designed the solar system for that 3 to 5 years.
right.
And then as I've continued to make uh, efficiency upgrades to our house, we reap the benefit, i.e., uh, the first couple of winters, I would say we probably were $120 to $130 a month
Yeah,
during the winter months. And now I'd be very comfortable in saying I average about $65 a month in the winter
amazing.
months.
Amazing.
And which was great because also in those first few months, being the grid charge was only $9. Now it's $16. We all understand what happens with those types of inflations and
Yeah,
maintenance fees to control and maintain the utility grid.
yeah.
Uh, but your local utility and somebody, a solar purveyor working with your local utility, they're going to be able to provide the best plan for you. And don't be afraid to get more than one quote and proposal before you move ahead.
You and I'm sorry to keep us on, but I think this is important because I have people in Nashville. One of my relatives had 11 days without power in Nashville at the last ice storm that they had. So he's looking at natural gas generators. Of course, that was before this current war that natural gas has just gone up. But basically, I think that there are certain utilities that are more friendly to solar and some that are not. He said he won't even entertain the idea of solar because, um, whenever he tries to talk about it with his utility, he basically hits a wall.
In my experience throughout, in both personally and professionally on this conversation,
Yes.
uh, it depends geographically where you're at in the country. Um, I've always found it interesting that, and when I was younger in my career, I remember nobody would have the conversation because it was a 10 to 14 year payback. And then all of a sudden, uh, technology moved far enough that it got 7 to 10. And as we spoke earlier, it can be in that 3 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And it becomes a utility. And um, I hate to say it, sometimes you just have to march to the beat of your own drum and take that victory on your own.
Yeah.
Um, I had a neighbor when I lived down in the Denver metro area in Lakewood. Our neighbor had solar on his house long before solar was a thing,
Yeah.
and he took it off when we lived next to him because it ended up costing him more to maintain
Okay.
than it did to keep it.
Right.
And 2 years later, he found somebody to put an updated new solar system in.
Right.
which was in he was ahead of the time in solar and having that production. And then there's enough companies out there now. There's competitive awareness
Yeah.
to drive those costs down. Of
Okay, I got to ask you one more cost thing because I know
course.
that you're purchasing for a business as well. The big question, like, we've seen Tesla Wall, we've seen a lot of the ability to have a good backup battery, right? Um,
Mhm.
but it was kind of cost prohibitive in the past. Have the costs come down? Are there some incentives available, whether it's locally, nationally, et cetera, that make it more affordable? Is it worth that cost and that cost benefit analysis there?
I can't speak to it professionally because I haven't been able to dive into it professionally that much.
Okay,
I can speak to it residentially, and I know I've got neighbors, I watch houses that are being built in my community that solar is going up and the cost of solar has come down with production.
right,
How that impacts with inflation that we're all experiencing right now, that I can't speak to.
right.
I don't know how much it's driven down. You would hope that with all the technology advancements, it would continue to drive down.
Yeah,
And then unfortunately, we've seen the inflation in the last 5 to 6 years kind of compound those cost savings. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, I've always personally believed if the utility would put solar on all residentials
yeah.
throughout a community or throughout, it would be and the largest impact we could do, and it would help all the commercial buildings out tremendously.
Yeah.
And it would have the most immediate impact on the environment if we had that opportunity to just go after the residential community.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to end it there. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
So thank you again for joining me for this important energy efficiency interview with Jasen Brown. Again, a lot of the tips that they're using at Ritz-Carlton, we can use in our own home, and that can be a lot of budget savings at a time when it's really needed. I also want to encourage all of you to join us for our 21-day Earth Gratitude Challenge. So just go to earthgratitude.org. And you should be able to see our challenge there. Click on it, and you'll be receiving 21 world leaders that are all different things to share. How they protect and conserve and save elephants and rhinos in Africa, how we support the indigenous leaders and the natives in the Amazon rainforests, also how that could be fun for us to go and learn from them, whether it's by Zoom or actually trips that Pachamama Alliance organizes so that we can go and visit them personally and stay in these beautiful rainforests. We also offer tips on how you can save a lot of money by walking and biking more, which also creates clean air, greater health for you personally, and also reduces gridlock. There's just a lot. So I do encourage you to check out earthgratitude.org, the blogs, the docu-series that features a lot of the different organizations I just talked about, but also the challenge, because we all want a more sustainable world. We all want to have a world that's, where the climate's stabilized. But are we willing to make the changes in our personal life that's going to really promote this?